So in your testimony today, you continue to call on the government to bring down those third-party fees. Those are those airport fees, security fees, and they're all applied to all air travel. You said those are the only direction that those fees go is up. If those come down, will you also bring your fares down?
Absolutely. So today's hearing was about affordability in air travel. And while there are many factors to affordability, there's one thing that's very unique to Canada, which is that all the government-controlled third-party fees and charges and taxes are just off the chart compared to other countries. And I'll give you one example. If this can all add up to $99, and this compares to 28 in the US. So it's more than 3 times of what it is south of the border. And this is the one reason why you find lots of double-digit ticket prices south of the border and no double-digit ticket prices all in north of the border.
You're saying that is the only reason. There's no other reason beyond your control or within your control that you can't keep that and offer that lower?
Well, the lowest that you can offer is obviously a zero airfare for the airline, but then all the taxes and fees that you have to pay for, right? So that's the lowest that you can offer. And if this, what's coming on top of it, is already $100, then you cannot offer a double-digit fare. And if you do, or double-digit all-in ticket price, and if you do, you're actually subsidizing your passengers because you're losing straight money because it's going, and then you go bankrupt. As so many airlines have gone bankrupt that tried it. 2 airlines this year alone. And Lynx Air, you may recall, they went bankrupt in February. They actually said it in their statement that they went bankrupt because they couldn't deal with these sky-high fees and taxes and charges in Canada.
What are your conversations like with this government in terms of trying to fix this? Because I know that this has been something you've been advocating for. And I say that because you've had experience with 16 years of Lufthansa and then 3.5 of those years with Austrian Airlines. Have you been able to say to this government and properly communicate to them what is happening in the European Union and maybe what works versus what doesn't work here?
Yeah, so that's a very good point because I worked in Europe for a long time and not everything in Europe is great. There's some things that are awful, but what they actually do very well is managing the air infrastructure across Europe. And what you get, by the way, it's also a user-pay system like here, so it's all paid by the air travelers, but it's so much more efficient the way they organize it that you actually get a better infrastructure for about half the cost per passenger. Now, we share this behind closed doors and in front of the doors with the government. I would say the further down in the hierarchy the people are you talk to, the more sympathy is for that. But so far, unfortunately, I don't see the political will to actually address it, to acknowledge it, to address it, and to start a reform. I do have some hope, though, because the new Minister of Transport, Minister Anand, she's very focused on productivity, and this is a big miss in productivity. So it's a big opportunity to increase productivity, lower airfares, and make air travel more affordable for more Canadians.
You have said in the past that you would be open to sharing the load basically for compensation, because oftentimes you can have a delay that's a result of air traffic controllers that have called in sick or whatnot. What is the percentage that you think would be appropriate to share with some of those other third parties? And do you think the government is open to spreading out some of that compensation burden?
I would like to make a different point on compensation because that's obviously a very complex issue. Lots of delays and cancellations are not authored by us. Some are, but many of them are from other parties. But I would like to make a different point, which is, you know, when we introduce our ultra basic fare, that's the lowest fare option, by the way, the main reason why they called us. We make services optional and give a choice to educated Canadians to choose whether they want a rock bottom just air travel or whether they want any bells and whistles and then pay for them. And with the compensation, I actually think it should be the same way. Because what has happened is that the air passenger protection rules have created a kind of a mandatory flight disruption insurance. So there's about, I would say, give or take $1 billion of cost that has been created through this system. Now, guess what? Yeah, this $1 billion of cost is redistributed through the ticket prices. So all the Canadian passengers on average pay probably an embedded $10 per person to fund this compensation scheme. So I think what the government should do is to make this voluntary so that people can actually choose. Do I want the right to have a compensation, or do I want an upfront discount on my ticket price and then travel cheaper, but in case of a disruption, I maybe don't get the compensation? I think, Canadians they're all grown up. They know what they do, and they should be able to decide by themselves what services they want, what insurances they want, and which ones they don't want.
But passengers can't control those delays. So you're asking them essentially to forego any kind of compensation with the hopes that you'll stay on time and they'll get a lower ticket price.
Again, it comes down to choice. I mean, some buy a ticket for $150 and then they win 1,000. Some may think this is good, and some maybe take a $10 discount. So the point I'm making here is it's a mandatory scheme, and I think these type of things should be optional.
But with respect, you're essentially telling air travelers that they can play a lottery and maybe have a bigger discount. And their experience has been in the past with a lot of air travel these days is that there's going to be a delay somewhere along the lines, and they're foregoing compensation. I mean, do you think that Canadians would go for that?
Well, they're playing a lottery today. That they pay $10 more for the ticket, and they maybe or maybe not get.
But at least there's a compensation that backs them up in case.
Yeah. And don't want to take this away from anyone. That's a right that.
But that's what you're suggesting. You're saying that could be an option to take it away from people.
No, not take it away, but let them choose whether they want it.
Do you think that that's something Canadians would go for?
We won't know until we find out.
And I asked that because I did some of the math with your ultra low cost, and it starts to add up though, because if you don't have a bag that you can check or that it has to be checked, the price of the checked bag is actually higher than if you go with the econo fare, and it starts to get up there. So I understand the idea behind the ultra basic, and a number of people, and I know that Air Canada is going in that direction, and they're getting a lot of heat for it as well with the no check baggage, or that you have to pay for, you can't bring on a carry-on. But I think a lot of people, and even the CEO of Air Canada said that travelers tend to prioritize lower advertised price, even if additional fees make the final price higher. It almost seems like you are just putting a low price on the door to get people into the door, understanding that there's going to be add-ons.
So I understand the frustration, and I think there's some misperceptions. So we introduced in June, a product called Ultra Basic Fare. When we introduced it, we actually lowered the fare by on an average of 14%. But people cannot take a large carry-on bag, a small one, yes, but not a large one, and they cannot check a bag unless they buy it. So since then, we have had 1.2 million Canadians that bought this fare and did not buy a carry-on, did not buy a checked bag, which means these 1.2 million Canadians over the last 6 months actually experienced a real net 14% decrease of their ticket. So I think that's actually great news. And if people choose to buy more, then they can buy more. That's very normal. I mean, it's a bit like McDonald's. Yeah? So not everyone has to buy a value deal. Some may just want a cheeseburger, and maybe they don't want fries or don't want a Coke, and then they should just get a cheeseburger, which is cheaper than getting the entire value meal. And that's no different here. It's all about choice.
I understand that, but you're putting a choice before Canadians that basically says they can have that cheeseburger with or without a bun. Some people think the bun is essential to having a cheeseburger, and some believe that having a carry-on is essential if you're going to go across the country. 1.2
million Canadians went on the plane without a carry-on. So without a large carry-on, so it's obviously there. And by the way, it's very standard across the world and also in Canada. And that's a fare that people actually appreciate. So why should they pay for something that they don't need? Why should they pay for an overhead bin space if they don't want it? So we better give them a discount.
Last question for you. What do you think the likelihood of some sort of movement on this, and especially those third-party fees, as you were talking about with the government, and especially this government, do you see an openness for them to actually have some movement on it?
Well, I'm not sure whether this government has still enough gas in the tank to start such a big reform of the system. But I would hope that a new government would actually address this because the main hurdle for low-income Canadians to travel are these sky-high third-party fees, and this is again, this is far beyond what it is in comparable countries. And all I would ask them to do is to go around the world, look at best practices in Australia, in the US, in Europe, and just pick from the best and do what's best from what others do well to build the most efficient and most modern and most affordable system for Canadians in Canada.
Okay, we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you so much for coming in, WestJet CEO Alexis von Hoensbroech. We appreciate you being here.
Thank you.